right. Welcome, everybody, to Speakin My Piece. The show is hosted by Dekel Bor and presented by JazzTimes. Thanks to JazzTimes for all of this. Our host, Dekel Bor, has performed with jazz greats Johnny Griffin, Reggie Workman, Pat Martino, Billy Hart, and many more, and his recent album, Let Love Rule, is available. You can check ropeadope.com or dekelbor.bandcamp.com for that. Today, Dekel sits down with saxophonist, composer, and producer Ben Wendel, and he's performed with an impressive array of artists. I like the range here. Antonio Sanchez, Eric Harland, Linda Mae Hahn, Louis Cole, Snoop Dogg, and Prince, just to name a few. Ben Wendel's new album, Hart, is out on the esteemed British indie label Edition Records, home to Dave Harland, Chris Potter, Lionel Louis, and many more. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Dekel Bor in Berlin. Dekel, how are you?
I'm good. I'm happy to see you. Ben, it's great to see you again. How's everything?
Good, man. Nice to see you too. And
what a ride, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Maybe we're starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel, yeah?
I'm real hopeful. So this past year, there have been a few albums that kept you inspired, just as a listener, as a fan. That you can recommend?
That I've been listening to.
Yeah.
Interesting. Man, quite a few. I mean, I always love checking out what's coming out on the scene. Like just the things that are just jumping into my mind. As recently, I was just listening to Pat Metheny's most recent album. This incredible younger generation who I've had the privilege of playing with, folks like Jeremy Dutton, Joel Ross, Emmanuel Wilkins. They're putting out some really beautiful music. And then in the non-jazz world, I've been listening to stuff like there's an indie singer-songwriter named Adrienne Lenker, who I really love.
Yeah, I love her, yeah.
Yeah, so it's all over the map.
Beautiful, beautiful. So I want to talk all about the new album. You have a new album out. It's called Hart. It's one of my favorites in a long time. We're going to see all the best of at the end of the year and all the Grammys at the beginning of next year. And I want to delve just into the process behind it. It has a very, very unique, in the most incredible Ben Wendel way about it. And I just wonder what was the process like? I mean, I can hear that many of these started just you at a piano, but what we hear at the end of it is so evolved. Like, this is not a couple of guys reading off a page here. This is really, really, really so well thought out and so well, I mean, so deeply done. So anything you can share about that? Just the process from what's happening in your brain to what we hear on record.
Thanks, Dekel. Maybe you want to just go on tour with me and just be my hype man? As I go around, I love it, man. For me, the writing process is a mixture of things. I'm always thinking about the individual players. So when I was writing this music, I was thinking of those specific musicians involved: Gerald Clayton, Shy Maestro, Joe Sander, Nate Wood.
I gotta ask you about Michael Mayo. I mean, it's sensational.
Yeah, Michael's, he came into my life in a very organic way. I'm so glad he reached out. When he came to New York, very soon after he came to New York, he just reached out. He emailed me, and he said, "I'm new to town." I already kind of knew about him because I know he had done the Monk Institute, and I said, "Yeah, come on over, let's play." And he came over with his effects rig, and we just improvised freely for about 2 hours, and there was just an immediate connection. And obviously, within 5 seconds, I knew I was playing with a master musician. And I've never had vocals on any of my albums, and but the moment I played with him, I just thought, oh, okay, here we go.
Was vocals on your radar as far as your own music beforehand? Because I remember when just when I was mixing my own album, I sent you a couple of things, and the first thing you asked was who was the vocalist, and I mean that kind of, I remember that. So
Yeah, I mean,
was having vocals on your own thing like planted before then, or it was just coming out of that meeting with Mayo?
it kind of, he definitely sparked that idea, because I was interested in doing something with a vocalist, but maybe not having words. And sometimes I write pretty challenging music, and he's an instrument. He is absolutely an instrument. He can improvise and sing lines like anybody. And
Yeah.
so I just saw the potential of what he could do. And then also he's so well integrated with his effects rig, and I also saw the potential of that, like how he could really bring that sound into kind of like an electroacoustic project. So it just kind of happened organically, and like kind of all of it did. Like even the idea of using Gerald Clayton and Shine Maestro having two piano players. That came out of seeing a gig where they actually did a double trio gig where they played at the same time with a rhythm section, and it was incredible. They just fit perfectly, like two Lego pieces or something.
These guys have serious ears. I mean,
Yeah, and so humble and just serving the music, and so that even there, I just thought, oh, okay, this is great. I can get that sound with two people and see how they interlock and interact. And they really think kind of in an orchestral way, in a chamber way when they're playing together, and it was exactly what I was hoping for. So this album, I think, is the in many ways the closest I've ever gotten to like having a sound in my head and then just choosing the right musicians with the right aesthetic to execute the music and really just do what I was hoping for. So I was really happy with that.
I do must say that as amazing as Michael Mayo's abilities, I feel the two of you has reached such an emotional impact together as the two voices up front. I mean, it's really unbelievable. Anyone who hasn't checked out the album, it's unbelievable. So walk me through the process. You're writing at the piano, and then what happens? Because this thing doesn't sound like, I mean, it sounds like oh, it's one of those things where it was born. It wasn't like made.
Well, I mean, I think right. I in my mind, the artist path, the artist journey is we're just spending our whole lives trying to distill down the things that we love, and then as best we can with the skill that we have, express them through our art form. So what I'm trying to do with each album is just be more and more me, like in my vision of the world. So if you knew how I was raised in my childhood was having an opera singing mom and having a lot of classical musicians in my family.
I didn't know this. So did I. My dad is a classical musician.
There you go. So really having that aesthetic in my house, playing bassoon, playing in the orchestra, but also playing in the wind ensemble and in the jazz band. And then I had a neighbor who was a huge jazzophile, and he was giving me Coltrane and Bird and Charles Mingus. And then
did you have a moment where the jazz bug bit you? I mean, can you point like an album that something went like, this is it?
Yeah, two albums. One was I had a compilation album that the neighbor gave me, which was just like the best of John Coltrane, and so it just had all the hits. It had Central Park West and Naima, My Favorite Things, And I had no idea what I was listening to, but I just loved it. And then there was one other album, which was a Charles Mingus album called The Black Saint and the Sinner Lady.
Yeah, I love it. I love that one.
And that album really, it created, I had such intense visuals when I would listen to that album, and it just had this sorcery to it. And, so I kind of fell in love with those these different art forms at a kind of young age. And I think it basically set the groundwork for sort of the sound that I enjoy. Actually, I mean, maybe the third part would be, so that I had classical and jazz, and the third part was that there was a 24-hour, no commercial hip hop station on AM radio that I was obsessed with. And that was like during a really beautiful, vibrant time in hip hop. You had like Tribe Called Quest, you had The Far Side, you had Nas, you had Black Star. So, when I look at my music, or like when I think about High Heart, in a lot of ways, it sounds exactly like what I would imagine it would sound like when I look at my roots. There's definitely a heavy classical chamber compositional aesthetic. There's a huge focus on groove and meter and feel, and then there's the language of improvisation. So I'm not really answering your question, but when I was putting the album together, I think what I was hoping for was something that essentially blended all those aesthetics. I wanted to write pieces that had a lot of meat to them and had material, but also felt like they had room for the musicians to kind of like bring forward their spirit. So I was really trying to find that balance through the balance of like a through composed piece, but then there's an openness to it that lets them kind of put their imprint on it. And I felt like it came together pretty well on this album. I was really happy with how, the ideal I was going for was sort of like you don't know when the composition, the composed stuff leads to the improvisation and back.
Yeah.
Like I want those lines to be kind of blurred.
Very organic, yeah.
Yeah, so thank you. But yeah, those are kind of some of the things that were on my mind as I was writing.
And as a composer, are you one of those guys that just sit and play something and it's right there, or you sit with pencil and a mark, and it's erase, rewrite? I mean, what is it like for you as composing, writing those pieces? I mean, how much is it? How much bliss on one side and how much an exercise frustration on the other side?
The process changes over time. This one, I knew that because it's a 6-piece group, and I knew that I was going to do a lot of interlocking parts. I knew that I was going to hit a wall in terms of like what I could actually do on the piano, because I'm not a piano player, and I didn't want to get too stuck in like Sibelius finale land. I kind of wanted to try and keep it mostly acoustic as I was doing the writing. So this was the first time I did this. I actually brought in a musician to help me like transcribe what I was working on. So a great young guitarist named Jan Esbra, who has worked with Becca Stevens, and he has his own group. And I can't remember, he either went to New School or Berkeley or one of those. And I just met him through Becca Stevens. And I said, do you want to come over, and I'm going to write, and I'll kind of show you how I write, and I can work on parts, and you can kind of hold things down. And then I'm going to ask you to transcribe what I'm writing. So this is the first time I've ever done a process like that. But it allowed me to basically work out what I literally couldn't do with my hands on a piano.
Right.
So I'd be working on the bass line, and I'd say, okay, I want you to start playing this figure from bar 4 to 8. Let me work this out. And then we'd record it, and I'd say, that's it, that's the take. I get that down. And so then he did that, and he charted out all the music. And then I kind of refined the shapes at that point. Like I basically had 80% of the structures of the tunes, And then I went in Sibelius and said, oh, okay, I'm going to get rid of that note. I'll adjust that note. So I'd never done it that way before. So that was the first time.
First time I hear about something like this.
Yeah. Just, trying different things.
Very, very cool. So then you guys had an extensive period of rehearsal. Did you send it beforehand? I mean, what was it like?
Well, I mean, it's a testament to those musicians, man. Like, so that music, one rehearsal, one like 5-hour rehearsal, and then 2 gigs. We played at the Winter Jazz Festival and one other gig at Shapeshifter. It was a double bill with Kendrick Scott, Oracle, which was a really special night. He was premiering a Chamber Music America suite that he had written called Dash, which was
right.
So that was it. Rehearsal and 2 gigs, and then we went in and recorded it. And everything you hear on that album, it's just like the videos that I put on YouTube. We are all in a room in a circle, no isolation, no headphones, no overdubs, no overdubs, no fixes. So they're playing this insane music with there's no going back because everything was bleeding into everything in terms of the audio. So those guys were just...
That must have been part of the magic of why this thing sounds so, it envelops you in so many ways.
I wanted that. Yeah, I deliberately wanted to do an album with no headphones, no separation. I really wanted that. And it's a testament to Nate Wood, the drummer / genius of everything. I mean, not only does he play bass, drums,
that guy is out of this world.
He also, many people don't know this, he's also an incredible engineer and mastering engineer. So I went to him and I said, I want to set up a studio in a completely blank, empty room. Can you do it? Do you think you could?
What?
Just
where did you guys do this?
We did it in a sound stage in Brooklyn. We just went into a completely empty room.
Unbelievable.
And I
this is unbelievable.
Yeah, and I put up I put up sound absorbing curtains. That's why it's kind of black around us, and got a couple of monitors so Michael, the vocalist, could hear himself and the piano could hear him, and then Nate just chose the right microphones so that there wouldn't be too much bleed, and he just got that sound. So it was
this is unbelievable to me. Unbelievable.
I mean, it's unbelievable to me. Some of those tracks, there's a track called Drawn Away, right, which is super hard. That take is the first take. They did that take and it was okay, all right, great, moving on. It was really, I mean, it's really an extraordinary gift to play with those guys, and it was a real tightrope act. It's because there was no fixing. It was just
unbelievable.
There's a certain energy to that.
If we're already speaking about mic placements, and I'm getting the sense that part of your artistry has been that there's a part of you that was a producer that kind of developed over over this past 15 years, both as a solo artist and also probably with Deep Body in a very deep way. But I've been getting a sense that the past 3 albums have been just kind of growing sonically in so many ways. And I'd love to hear what it's like, in your shoes.
Man, thank you. Yeah, I've been producing more on the side for different artists, not just jazz artists. I've worked with folk Americana artists and electronic musicians and stuff like that. I've always been really interested in the big picture when thinking about sonics, and also I love that stuff. I love knowing the microphones and what it's going to sound like and what kind of and if I use this compressor or this delay, what's that going to do? So, and I've had a really long friendship with Nate through Knee Body.
Obviously.
And Yeah, and I've learned a lot from him, and we've had just so many hangs where we'll listen to an album and we'll say, you know, why does this sound the way it does? You know,
I've been doing the same, and I'm starting to I get more and more skeptical the more I do that, because it really seems like and I've been speaking to a lot. I've been mentored by a lot of producers, and I've been producing other people as well. And the more I learn, I really do feel like the less I know about this. It seems to me that especially nowadays, where people go to school to be like an audio engineer, or people go online and they learn this and that and this microphone and this cable and this compressor, and um, the more that I learn about this from people I consider masters of that craft,
Mm.
it seems that all bets are off in so many ways. I mean, there's just too many albums that changed my life, that were recorded kind of like what you were doing, almost like a Rudy Van Gelder thing. I mean, when this could be Beck's album, this could be Nirvana. Actually, Nirvana is not a good example, but there's not where you hear like I spoke to the guy that produced the Nirvana album, and he says
Yeah,
there's almost no outboard gear, almost nothing at all. It's all mic placements,
yeah,
which is
yeah,
why
yeah.
I'm blown away by what you guys did. It's I could never imagine that was the scenario.
Well, thanks, man. I mean, it's you know, a lot of what's helping that is things like, you know, I'm using effects pedals, Michael is using, but just subtle, you know, things that give us. I mean, you're a guitarist, you understand, like things that give a sense of space, and then through conversations with Nate, who mixed it, we had those kind of conversations, like how can we create a certain kind of ambience where we're doing things that are maybe not entirely of acoustic nature. You know, can we put a subtle delay here? Can we, you know, just to give it this kind of.
Let me ask you the question that no one wants to answer.
Okay.
How do you feel about acoustic versus electric versus soundscapes in jazz right now? It really seems, I'm, as you said, I'm a guitarist, so I can play Grand Green records all day, but it really seems like for our generation that we kind of have to create a new frontier for ourselves within jazz.
I mean, you know, there's that famous quote, jazz is the music that jazz musicians are playing in the time that they're living in. You know, it's just a reflection of who you are and what you grew up with. I mean, I grew up with the birth of hip hop, the birth of modern EDM, with Nirvana, with Radiohead. Like that's what I grew up listening to. So like, why wouldn't I incorporate those sounds? You know, there's no reason not to. It's just sound. You know, it doesn't bite. You know, so I think there's, you know, what I love so much about this art form is that it envelops and welcomes any and all influences and any sounds of any cultures. And if you you know, if you can do it in a way that is honest and organic, then I think
Exactly. I feel that this art form, anything that you do that is deeply authentic, would kind of work.
Yeah, I mean, I think in a way that's one of the main tenets of this art form. You know, like kind of like what I was saying earlier, this idea of the artist path of using music and this art form as a key to self-discovery and kind of getting further and further to the essence of who you are and how you want to experience life, you know. So part of that is technical, and part of that is expressing your love of sound and the albums you listen to and the musicians that you admire, and then part of it is, you know.
So just before we go into technicalities, I will say that anyone that hasn't checked out the album yet, it's unbelievable. And not only that, we're giving away a vinyl copy today to anyone who's sharing the live feed to their thing or whatever. So we'll be looking out for you guys and send one of you guys an album. But the rest of you guys, it's unbelievable. And it's really unbelievable. So check it out. But let's talk technicality for a minute, because it seems like that for the younger generation, there's almost no. You're the hero of taking this language forward. From what I hear from my peers and from students and from young, I mean, it's really and every time that I see you guys live, it's kind of amazing to see that the way people connect what you're doing in such a deep way. And so the first and obvious question is, do you have like a routine that you do in order to kind of work on your language and develop your thing? I mean, what does it look from your eyes?
I mean, getting good at this idea of, I don't know, a daily practice or a daily ritual of always getting better every day as a musician. I think that's a very personal journey. And so what I've discovered for myself through a lot of trial and error is that I personally thrive on structure. Like having a structure is actually what allows me to get into the zone or the space of that we all want to get to, where suddenly time is irrelevant and we're doing what they call deep work, where you're just really inside whatever it is you're working on, and you feel like a child again, basically playing with your toys, So for me to get there, I have I can't show it to you right now, but like I have an eraser board. And on the eraser
right.
is an agenda of like what I want to work on and what I want to accomplish in my practice, and even bigger goals of what I want to write or record. And just something about doing that, it's once I get through step 1, step 2, step 3, and then suddenly I'm just in that place. And that's what helps me. It's kind of like to me, the analogy is like getting into a kind of a cold swimming pool. It's kind of, you don't want to get in, and then you dip a toe, but then 20 minutes later you're so glad you're in there. So the structure and the steps is what really helps me. But what I find so fascinating, and I'm just a student for life, is I'm always asking people what their process is, and it's really inspiring to hear, talk to just master musicians and find that they do the opposite. They don't have any plan or structure. They just get their horn out and they play, and that's their gift. They through doing that with no planning, they're able to work through their roadblocks and just become greater and greater.
Yeah, I think people are just very, very different about that.
What about you? What's your daily process? Are you more on the
I actually try. I've been promising myself to get the razor board, like the big thing, but we've been moving so much.
Yeah, totally.
I mean, I'm not mounting that and they're taking it off all the time, but I'm trying to have goals. I'm trying to be goals oriented, both in composition as well as practice. But it seems that my mind is really, no matter what I try to do, goes exactly the other way. I mean, it seems to want to take detours, and it seems to just, you thought it's gonna be this, but it's not about that at all. It's about this other thing today or tomorrow, or so I really find that as a composer, I can write whatever comes out. There's no way for me to really, I'm not really able to have direction over it. And working on the craft, it's kind of like what you say. It's kind of like the pool thing. I need to spend time with something. I mean, like ideally, an ideal practice session would not have an hour that I have to go and do some other thing in that hour. I mean, if I have a good chunk of time, the more time I have, the as you say, the deeper it will get. Because sometimes something happens to me if I would play the simplest rhythm changes in B flat in slow medium, something happens only after 30 minutes of playing the same improvising over the same thing. that really opens new things for me.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great example of what I'm talking about. Just everybody's process is different. You're like, kind of what you're talking about reminds me a lot of hearing interviews with Michael Brecker, where I'm not to say this is you, but like just, you know, he described himself as kind of a slow learner. Like what helped him was just like, I'm going to work on one idea very deeply and just kind of sit with it. And that's kind of how I work. Like I can't work on 10 different things. Like I want to just spend time with this one idea and get to the bottom of it, you know? So it's just interesting how everybody has a different process.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But what I mostly find is that I need time. Like I'm not one of those guys that can have 1 hour a day or that's never going to work.
Yeah.
So let's talk about if I talk about the heroes of our generation, the generation before us that kind of paved the way. There's no one that I can think of that kind of absorbed that language more than you and took it in a very personal way on the saxophone. Really, I'm talking mainly about Redman, Turner, Potter. I mean, what was it like for you as a lover of music and hearing it, and Jen, kind of like what did it take you as a fan in order for it to kind of find its way into your thing?
I mean, those guys. I have so many heroes at this point, but you know, there's something like I will just never get tired of the gift of being able to hang and speak to those master musicians and glean a little knowledge off of them. And you know,
that's really what this thing has been about. I mean, it used to be that you could just hang and ask questions, and I would find my way to kind of go to the next level, or you know, and then and just by hanging with a lot of before a gig, after a gig, on a session, after a session, dinner after a thing, and when I was working on the next album, I find myself wanting to really take a leap on this one. But I felt myself stranded in Berlin with kind of no one to really interact with. So we kind of started this, just so I could, you know what I mean? It's just.
Well, I mean, you've. I'm sure this has been an amazing journey for you because you've been talking to just such an incredible wide array of master musicians. So it's really, you know, bravo.
Absolutely. It's been very.
But you know, but yeah, like to answer your question, it's you know, I always say I really think of music as like a continuum. So you know, when you're talking about the generation before us, the generation after us, like we're just all so interconnected. And you said it right. It's true. It's like we live in a house that was built for us before us. You know, like they paved the way, and the best way to honor that is to love what they did and to respect it and to just learn it as deeply as you can, but then do something different. You know?
Yeah.
But I really feel like music is the great equalizer. You know, like that didn't make as much sense to me when I was 20. You know, if I remember experiences of being in my early 30s and then like a musician that I deeply admired would like come up to me and say like, hey, can we hang? I want to kind of ask what you're working on. And I would be like, you know, what? You know, why are you asking? You're done. You figured it out. You know, and now being older, it's like, oh, totally, I get it. Like I just want to talk to anybody and it's not just the people that are generations older, it's the younger generations too, that have so much talent and fire and saying, what are you doing? You know, how are you looking at this? How are you conceptualizing this? And you just see that it's this beautiful circle, you know, in a way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But I will say that almost all of the masters that I got to spend time with, the thing that blew me, that blew my mind the most was the curiosity. I mean, it was.
Well, that's the thing, right? It's like all of these people we're talking about, they're working harder than they ever have at music.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You talk to Mark and Chris and Josh, and they're just like, I got so much that I need to work out, and I got to shed on this and that. And it's just like, it's beautiful, just like this lifelong hunger. And I mean, really, speaking of that, I was just so sad when Chick Corea passed away. Like, to talk about like the ultimate expression of that. Talk about, I remember I saw him and Herbie do their duet project, which is like one of my favorite projects of all time. And see them, I got to see them. I was backstage with Gerald Clayton. We were just watching as they did their duo thing at the Monterey Jazz Festival. And of course, it was just incredible. And we were remarking on, wow, like here they are in their 70s and 80s, and they're playing the best that they've ever played. Like, it's not like their best days are behind them. Like, everything is a summation of all their curiosity and drive, and it just makes them even better, And then they got off stage, and then I was just like a fly on the wall watching them talk. And Chick was like talking about all these things he wanted to do. I'm writing a concerto. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. And we gotta work on that. And it's like, wow, with everything that you've done. It was like, no, like it was like just so much fire there.
If we look at the discography that is just so culturally rich, I mean, it's kind of unbelievable.
It's awe-inspiring, it's intimidating, it's everything, but anyway, all that to say that all these musicians that you've mentioned and all the ones that you've interviewed, it's like that is the one thread that connects them all, is they never stop. That curiosity is just there, they keep going. It's super inspiring because, I mean, man, to do this, if you're lucky enough to do this for 60, 70 years of your life, to just keep pushing and keep working on music, that is a real feat, and so
that's also a real gift.
Yeah.
Because I think especially nowadays, with the way that this music has been commoditized, and with social media losing its mind, I think so many people ask, how do I do this? How do I do that? How do I do this? And I keep feeling like the big thing is the relationship you have with the music. I mean, that is the ultimate reward. You get to be a better musician tomorrow, hopefully, and you get to be part of a very, very close community, and a very, very special one that is ahead of the curve in so many ways, gender-wise, racially, sociologically, emotionally, thinkers. I mean, it's really unbelievable to see, especially what's been presented. 2, 3, 4 generations above us. I mean, it's mind blowing.
Yeah, it is a gift. It's a special group of people, and it's interesting you bring it up because I don't talk about it as much, but kind of the main questions that I was asking myself while writing the high hard music, it had a lot to do with the internet and social media, and I wasn't really trying to make a statement. I don't think I would ever make a statement about what's going on because we're kind of in the middle of it, and I feel like 10, 20 years from now, we're going to look back and then we'll go, oh, okay, that's what happened. That's how the culture shifted. That's what the internet did to humans, to art. And here was the good part and here was the bad part. And, so like high art, high heart.
What does that mean to you as yeah, exactly.
It's a little inside joke for me, which is there's this phrase called high art, low art, which is this thing that I've never really agreed with, which is like who decides what's high art and low art. And in the past, it was the gatekeepers, like whoever the gatekeepers were. Maybe it was newspapers, maybe it was critics. But now, all of those walls have just been destroyed, and nobody nobody has say over what is high and low anymore. And I think in one respect, that's a beautiful thing. In another respect, it really becomes a really interesting parable for artists, right? Because, you know, all that we have now, digitally speaking, is data that tells us things, but it doesn't really tell you the worth of of the things that you do, right? If I can take a video of a cute kitten playing with a doll and put it on YouTube and it gets 1 million views in one day, and then someone else puts up a rendition, an incredible rendition of a Bach cello suite, and it gets 10 views, does that mean that the kitten video has more value than the cello video? But it, you know, these, I feel like we're in the middle of that right now. Like, why, what drives us now to be artists, to be artists when the feedback that you get isn't always something that you can trust?
Well,
You know?
I think that it's funny that you mentioned this, because a lot of people, a lot of promoters and festivals, they actually ask for view counts nowadays, because, I mean,
Mhm.
you're missing the whole point. It's not about that view count. With that being said, I do feel that this music has always been at its best. It's been people's music. I mean, we talk about Mingus or we talk about Coltrane. These are celebrated cultural heroes to many, 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 many people. Even if it takes time for it to reach that point. Um, and I think, like, for example, going to see you guys, it's very clear that people of our generation, people are responding to the music in the most organic and authentic way, which, I mean, in a way, that's the ultimate gatekeeper, in a way.
Yeah, that's kind of like the conclusion that I can confidently state, which is that we don't know the rest. We don't know any of the exterior factors that measure us, but we know our own measure, and so that's the thing. Like this, the satisfaction of being an artist, of making music, of writing that music, of hearing it come to life, of being able to perform that and experience that synergy on stage with humans. That's just undeniable, and that's the part that you can't put into words and you can't quantify with data, but you know it when you just know it when it's happening, and it's what gives your soul, you know, nutrition and your life purpose. And so that was some of the stuff I was trying to like express in a general way on the album, is the emotionality of the sort of like what it means to be emotional and still be an artist
Absolutely,
during
absolutely. Ben,
this
this is
digital time, you know, and still, and realizing like, well, you know, all you have is your own authenticity. You know, that's really all at the end of the day that you can
Ben, that
by.
came across big time. I mean, it's kind
Thanks
of weird
again.
because you put out the album fairly recently, and none of us have been touring, so it's kind of hard to gauge how people react to the music. But I can tell that myself, as a lover of all things beauty, there's such an arc to the album. There's such a storytelling arc to the album, and it really takes you places. I mean, I find myself. Um, you know how the more people are kind of condensing things into shorter solos, shorter discs. It's a clip, a 30-second clip. Don't take a long intro. It's not much better. And I find that this album has this arc to it that is very, very meaningful and special. But above all, it really hits you emotionally. I really feel this way, and that is huge. That's kind of huge.
Thanks, Dekel. I appreciate it, man. Thank you.
So again, I invite everyone to listen to iHeart and get the album and get the physical album. It just sounds so much better. And what else can I say? What's next for you? I mean, what's
Well, I mean, you know, knock on wood, it would appear that the world is starting to open up a little bit in terms of us as musicians being able to perform live. So we'll see. I have the tours that I would have done in support of Hart over a year ago have been rescheduled, and the first one happens this fall, and there's other work that's starting to happen. So those my plans are to be ready to play live music again, and so we'll see what happens.
That's fantastic, man. I can't wait to see you out there. So I'm going to close with a couple of things if we're already talking about live music. Next Thursday, we have a very, very special premiere of a new project with Stage at JazzTimes, sure, and some other very, very exciting partners. We're going to be streaming all over Europe with a lot of different guests. So it's basically music from my album and other people's albums playing in one room for, for once. Next week, we're going to have, speaking of Chicoria, Hans Glavishnik, who you know very, very well. He's going to be guesting. Hans has been playing in Chicks Trio sporadically over the years. So he's going to come to Berlin, and we're going to play a set. And the week after that, we'll go back to another talk with Jeremy Pelt and another guest the week after that of a live session. So we hope you guys stick with us. Again, share the stream to get to win a copy of Ben's album. Ben, well, I love the music so much. Thanks for making it.
Thanks, Dekel. I appreciate it, man, so much. Thanks for having me. And
Man, look forward to seeing you real soon. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's been too long. All right. You stay
Thanks,
safe,
man.
and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Okay. Ciao.
All right, you are clear. Just watching my stream. I got to make sure I turn it off.